Well, hello, investors, and welcome to our scripting studies on thinkorswim. My name's Ken Rose, and as always, it's great to be here to discuss investing in the stock market, particularly using these tools that are available to us on the thinkorswim platform to help us customize things, optimize things, and holds the potential to help us to make a better use of our time. Just a little bit of a heads up here. This is an intermediate class. It is assumed that you have a basic understanding of the thinkorswim platform. If that's not the case, you're more than welcome to stay here and join us. I do try to craft the words so they are beneficial to everyone. However, at times you may feel a little bit overwhelmed. In that case, I would suggest that you join Connie Hill's Getting Started with thinkorswim on Monday nights at this same time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Would also like to acknowledge those folks that are catching this on the archived recording. Appreciate you taking some time out of your day when it is available and making the effort to go in and catch these archives. So, just a little bit of a heads up. So, once again, we're in earnings season. You know, last week we're just kind of getting started. Now I guess you could say that we're in earnings season full swing. Last night I presented an earnings trend study. And today what we'll do is we'll look under the hood at that study. Now, if you change your own oil or if you cook your own meals, then this session is definitely for you. If that's not the case, this session is still for you. What I would just ask is that you put on your I want to know the details hat here for the next 25 minutes or so, and I think you should be fine. Tonight what I'd like to do is I'd like everybody to walk away with an understanding of how to assess what lines of code are doing and also how to use look and fill commands within that code. Now, if you have no familiar with thinkorscript, that might scare you a little bit, but hang in there. It's not quite as overwhelming as it may sound. To accomplish our agenda here this evening, what we'll do is we'll take a look at sharing links. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on sharing links because we covered that extensively last time. I'll just show you the link, and if you want to, you can jot it down. For further information as far as how to use these links and the details related to it, I would encourage you to check the archive for last week's session. And after we do that, we'll look under the hood a little bit as far as the study. We'll see how the plot command works. We'll see how if then else statement works, and we'll also look to see how some of the look and fill commands work. So without further ado then, let's go ahead and start by running through our disclosures here. And in way of disclosure, just a reminder, folks, that supporting documentation for any claims, comparisons, statistics, or other technical data will be supplied upon request. Always keep in mind that transaction costs and other fees are important factors and should be considered when evaluating any options trade or any trades or any other trades for that matter. In order to demonstrate the functionality of the platform, we need to use the actual symbols. However, TD Ameritrade does not make any recommendations or determine the suitability of any security, strategy, or course of action for you through your use of our trading tools. Any investment decision you make in your self-directed account is solely your responsibility. We do use the paper money software application. Do keep in mind that that is for educational purposes only. Successful virtual trading during one time period does not guarantee successful investing of actual funds during a later time period, as market conditions do change continuously. And always keep in mind, folks, that backtesting is the evaluation of a particular trading strategy using historical data. Results presented are hypothetical. They did not actually occur, and they may not take into consideration all transaction fees or taxes you would incur in an actual transaction. And as we all know, investors, past performance of any security or strategy does not guarantee future results. So the process that is frequently engaged in when using the thinkscripting capabilities, first of all, you identify a goal, and the goal in relationship to this script that we've been talking about would be something that would enable us to look at earnings per share on a chart over an extended period of time, and at a glance be able to identify the trend of those earnings per share, whether or not the stock outperformed or underperformed, how much it outperformed or underperformed. That would be the goal related to what we have been working on. Can thinkscripting meet the goal? Well, that would typically be the next question. And with regards to, we've already put this script together so that it looks like that it does meet the goal as I paraphrase, but some investors may want additional details and it may fall short of their goals, so we do want to keep that in mind. Outline the steps to script. We'll get a little bit more into that tonight as we're looking at the actual script here related to this study that we did. Apply the thinkscript tools. Also, a little bit more of our discussion here tonight. Write custom scripts when needed. Again, we're kind of looking under the hood here tonight, so that would kind of pull in with the scripting that's done in order to create the study that we've been working for here. Test what is written related to the goal. We actually did this last time. We looked at how it works. We looked at it in relationship to what the earnings per share were. So we've already done that test. And again, For further information with regards to the tests and how it works, again, I would refer you back to the archive from last week's session. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we'll bring up the thinkorswim platform right here. Right here is the link, okay? Now if you'd like to write down that link or copy that link or take a screenshot, you're welcome to do, though. Just keep in mind that I'm not recommending this link or I'm not recommending this study as something that you should use in your trading, okay? What I'm doing is I'm bringing it up here and we're discussing it so that it's something that you can consider. Some folks may find it beneficial and some folks may not find it beneficial. But that is the link if you'd like to use it. Again, as far as using that link, I would redirect you back to the archive that we did last week. That was basically our session, which was archived. Each one of our sessions are generally archived unless there's some kind of difficulty with the underlying technology that is when things are presented. So right down here you can see our earnings trend line. For those of you that are new here tonight, let me just briefly describe this. Notice that on our chart here we have a 5-year one-day chart, so we have all these earnings right here. We could go in and we could compare these earnings to previous quarters to see what's gone on from quarter to quarter. We can compare each one of these earnings to what the estimates were as well. We could do that. But rather than do that, we've created this study so that at a glance we can see what the nature of the earnings per share have been. And we can see that ABBV here was kind of rolling on it right here. Then right here, notice that the earnings per share were all the way down here. What this little red arrow is pointing to, that's pointing to where the analyst expectations were. So the arrows down here pointing to what the analyst expectations were. If the earnings are below the expectations, then we have a red arrow. Right here you can see these two little red arrows. They're pointing right at the earnings per share, which means that this arrow right here is red, which means slightly missed. This arrow right here is green, which means slightly exceeded expectations. Again, green means that we exceeded expectations. You know, if the arrow's pointing right at that box, it's going to say that's meaning that, hey, we exceeded it, but maybe not by much. Same thing if we have a red arrow that's pointing the box. Okay, we fell short of the expectation, but again, not by much. When we get a little bit more space up here, we can see that this was a greater exceeding of expectation. We can see the resulting price movement was significant here as well. Let's just zoom in on that just a little bit. So here you can see the distance. Here you can see a gap up and then a run following that gap up. We don't always know that will happen, but it is a possibility. So if we come over here and look at the last reported earnings for ABBV, we can see that we have a red arrow. It's a little bit above the box, meaning that the earnings failed to meet expectations. We'll just check this one out real quick. I'm going to roll over the earnings thing here. So the actual was 197. The actual was 190. The estimate was 1.971. So you can see that we fell just a little bit there. So this is the study. This is a link that you can use in order to incorporate it. Now let's dive in and take a look underneath the hood, because that's our primary purpose here this evening. So right here, before I do this, so let me just come over here and show you where you would typically look under the hood. So when you have a study like this, if you want to look under the hood of the study once you've got it, just come up here to Studies, click on Edit Studies. There's your study right here. Now as far as bringing it over here and into this area and all that type of thing, again, that is part of the archive that we did last week. But right here is your study. I'm going to click on the little scroll bar right here. When I click on the scroll, notice it opens up the detail in here, okay? So the document I'm going to bring up is just simply this information, but I'm bringing it up in a document so that we can make it larger so that everyone can see it. That's the purpose for that. Okay. It also has an explanation here. So what we just discussed, when you do look in the detail, you can come in here and you can pick up the essence of our previous discussion right here. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that, okay, because we do have our Word document that we can use. So let's bring that up. So let's see what's going on here with regards to this study. So if you'll notice here, first of all, the first line here is declare lower. Okay, what the declare lower command is telling us is saying, hey, where do you want your study to be? Do you want it to be up here in the price action? By the way, folks, let me do one thing here. Okay, I'm going to cancel that. I'd like to make this viewable as much as possible at all times. So let's slide that down there. Okay. And we'll come back over here. There we go. So the declare lower command, that's just you're stating, do you want the study to appear up here where the price is at, or do you want it down here in its lower box? If you don't do a declare lower, okay, by default it will appear up here in the price action. So by saying declare lower, we say, hey, we want it down here in our own little box. Now right here I've got declare hide on intraday. What does that mean? Well, that means our chart right now is a daily chart. Okay, if we were in a time frame here of intraday, if we were looking at intraday time frame, then this study would not show up. Let's just say OK for intraday, and you can see the study's gone. So it's not taking up real estate. It really doesn't make any sense to have it there on an intraday chart anyway. So that's the meaning of that little command there. Let's come back over here to daily, and let's zoom in a little bit and come in here to 3 months, and there we go. Well, actually, to really see this, we're going to want to go out over a longer time frame. Let's go back here to 5 years. Okay. All right, so that's those statements. Now, folks, I am going a little bit quickly here tonight, and the reason for that is because we only have about 20-25 minutes, okay? And this may take a couple of sessions. I don't want to take a couple sessions. If we don't get through it tonight, next week we'll lead off with another new study. Okay, we'll lead off with another new study, then we'll maybe come back here and catch some of the things that we missed here tonight. But I would like to have at least one new Think Scripting study to present every 2 sessions. Okay, so right here, what have we got? Well, let's come over here. So here's a statement right here. This is a definition statement. We've talked about definition statements before. This basically defines a variable. That's the name of the variable right there, EPS. We're saying equals right here. And then this is the definition of statement. We're using an if, then, else command process. What this is saying is that if, and what this means right here is NaN, ISNAN, that means is not a number. So it's saying if it's going to go out here and say it's going to get actual earnings. So what this does, it starts when you pull up a chart, it starts over here and it starts going and it looks at each individual day for each one of these commands. So it looks at a day and it's saying, is this not a number, get actual earnings? In other words, it's looking to see, do we have actual earnings? Now, if I just had the is NaN get actual earnings, okay, then this would be true if we didn't have earnings. But notice the exclamation point right here. Now, that's a key aspect of it. Let me just outline that. That little exclamation point. When you use the exclamation point before this and before other commands as well, it reverses the meaning. So now instead of saying is not a number, we're saying is it a number, because we changed the meaning. So is, when we look at the candle, do we have actual earnings on that day? If we do, here's the then. If we do have actual earnings on that day, then get the actual earnings. In other words, take the actual earnings and apply it to EPS right here. In other words, so as we're moving along here and we get the first earnings per share right here, that's an actual earning. So it's going to apply the earnings right here to EPS. Okay, so it's going to get those earnings, put it here. Else, okay, if we don't have earnings, then EPS1, which means just use the previous value of earnings per share. So in effect, what this does, it goes along the chart. Each time we have earnings per share, it updates our value right here with earnings per share. Then as we move along, if we don't have earnings per share, it's going to carry that value forward because we have this. If we don't have earnings per share, just use the previous value. That's what EPS1 in these blocks means. It means look back one value. Okay? So coming on down here then, so what is it? What's this doing then? It's just going along the chart, and this variable is holding the most recent earnings per share value. That's what that's doing right there. So if we come down here, now we have a plot. Okay, now a plot does 2 things. Okay, a plot defines a variable. So we can define a variable using DEF, or we can define a variable using plot. A plot defines a variable. Here's the name of the variable right here, EPS underscore line underscore chart. So we're plotting a line, and what's the line we're plotting? Get actual earnings. So we're plotting get actual earnings. So as we're going along here, this command is saying, hey, get the actual earnings here. So get this earnings, get this earnings, get this earnings, get this earnings, and plot those down in this area right here. Well, because these are events, in order for this plot to work correctly, we need to use a second command, and this is a look or fill command. We've identified the variable right here, which is EPS line charts, plot it, but we need to use a second command because these are events that are sometimes occur and sometimes they don't, and there's variable spaces in between them. So the command we use is take our variable right here, EPS line, let me just highlight that, take that variable, and down here we have two look and feel statements. What we're doing is we're changing the look and the feel that this is going to have when it's on the chart. So notice this is the same variable. Notice this is the same variable. So here's our variable. Now we're just saying, hey, when we put it out here on the chart, we want to control how it looks. We need to enable approximation in order to create lines going from one event to the other. So this is saying with EPS line chart, enable approximation. In other words, when we get 2 points, let's approximate where the line would be between those 2 points. In other words, let's draw a line between those 2 points. And then right here is the line color. Okay, and the line color we have here, we set it to the default of color black. If you wanted to, you could come in here and you could actually change the color of this line right here. Okay. Now, part of what we want to discuss today is how do you identify what certain lines are doing on the chart. Okay. And if I come over here and come back over here, let's go into the study here for just a second. And I'm going to pull this up here, and I'm going to click on earnings right here, and we'll come down here. It's a little bit hard to see, okay? But this is our plot area right here. What you can do inside of here is you can go in front of the line, and you can put a pound sign. See, so there's a pound sign. When you do put a pound sign, you're saying, hey, don't use this line in the code. When you get some red stuff in here that's saying, hey, there's some statements here that need that. And yeah, the enabled approximation, that's related to that same variable, so we'll put a pound sign on that, and we'll put a pound sign on this one, and then when we do that, we'll click on apply, and notice our line's gone. Okay? So that's one way you can tell is you can just put some pound signs. I'm going to bring that back up because we do want to have our line right there. And let's apply to bring that back up. Okay. And we'll say OK. So let's come back over here, folks. And wow, I can't believe how fast time's going. So let's come down here to our next section here then. Now, notice we have a line here, but we also have these little boxes. These little boxes are occurring on these earnings dates. So whereabouts are these boxes coming from? Well, this is another one. This is plot earnings dates. Once again, we're identifying a variable which is earnings date. And what are we giving this variable? It's get actual earnings. Remember we said that if we're dealing with a date that happens doesn't happen on a day after day basis, we need to give the system some help as far as plotting it. If we just have plot earnings, get actual earnings, this won't draw anything here. Why? Because we're talking about an event that occurs sometimes and sometimes it doesn't as we're going across here. So we need to give it some extra help. So right here we're giving it some help. We're saying, okay, take that earnings date, let's set our painting strategy, and our painting strategy is squares. So we're giving a little bit more help and saying, when we have these earnings dates, let's create a square. So here's our squares. But notice our squares are different colors. Some are green and some are red. If you look here, you can kind of notice that the ones that are green, the earnings went up. The ones that are red, the earnings went down. So if we come down here, there's something else going on here, and we'll probably find it if we come down here. Yeah, so this is another look and feel statement. Notice it's earnings date dot. That's how these look and feels look when you're looking at these. You, instead of identifying the variable, you start off with the variable, then you would do a dot, and then your look and feel. This is look and feel, set painting strategy to squares. Then we'll come down here and earnings date, assign value color. Now we're going to do another if then else statement. And what we're saying here is that if earnings per share, okay, so if we come across one of these and the earnings per share right here is greater than earnings per share 1, now where are these earnings per share coming from right here? Okay. Well, they're coming from up here. Remember, this is the guy that goes along the chart. That's earnings per share line. Comes right here. This is the earnings per share that goes along the chart, and it's just updating each time there's an earnings. So if we're coming down here then, and we've come across the deal where, hey, we're going to plot actual earnings, we're going to draw a square. Well, on that square date, we have a new earnings announcement. So this is saying if the new earnings per share is greater than the previous earnings per share, as we're along here, then color it dark green like this. else color downtick, and downtick in this case is going to be your red arrow right there. It's whatever you identify as downtick. Okay. We may have to clarify that a little bit more in some of our future sessions. Okay, so that accounts then for our boxes. So now we have our boxes. So coming down here then, and also we can put the line, we can put the earnings date line width. Now, this is just making the boxes, not making the line, okay? So what this is controlling is how big those boxes are. Notice we have a 5 here. If I made that a 1, the boxes would be tinier. Then we'll come down here and notice what we've got here. We got plot estimated earnings. Now these are estimated earnings rather than actual earnings. So we say get the estimated earnings. Here we're going to do our look and feel. Estimated earnings, set painting strategy. Now we're saying, hey, give me some arrows. So the squares represent earnings. The arrows represent estimated earnings. That's how we're doing it. So plot estimated earnings. First of all, get estimated earnings. Okay, if we do have estimated earnings, then if I just have get estimated earnings, because it's an event that doesn't occur all the time, nothing will happen down here. I need to give it a little bit of help. Help we're giving it, estimated earnings, look and feel dot set painting strategy. Now we're saying strategy dot arrow up. Okay. And then here we're identifying the color for the arrow right here. Again, our plot, here's our variable estimated earnings down here. Estimated earnings, here's another estimated earnings. So we know this look and feel because there's the name of the variable dot. Here's our look and feel down here. Okay. And what's it saying here? Well, it's saying assigned value color if estimated earnings is less than earnings per share. Okay. Which means that earnings per share is higher than the estimate, then color it green. So here's our greens right here. Green, green, green. Else color white. Okay. These aren't white, these are red, aren't they? Okay. And I believe what's going on there is because we have a light background here, if we put white, we wouldn't be able to see them. So the thinkorswim engine realizes, hey, I need to change to something else so that the user will be able to see this, and automatically does this little red here. That's what I'm anticipating, but I'm going to double check that here in a moment. I'm going to go in and look at the actual code, see if the actual code here is dark red. It may be, and this copy here may be a little bit antiquated. We'll check that out. And then here's our estimated earnings set line weight at 4. Again, that controls how big the arrows are. Let's come back here, and this is just a pound sign saying end of code. When you write your code, you can use a pound sign and say, hey, I'm done with the code. So let's check out that one thing, folks. Let's come over here, and I'm going to come here and just double check that one command to see if that was changed to red or if it's still white and the system's taking care of us. So here we are, estimated earnings, and yep, actually it's changed here to dark red. Okay. So let me review this statement here with you then. Rather than the system, I just wanted to double check that. Okay. Rather than right here color white, this is actually color dark. And how do we do dark here? I just want to, because I know I've got, up here I've got dark underscore red. So that's going to be dark underscore red, just like that. All right, folks. Now, those of you that have some familiarity with things, scripture, probably saying, "Oh yeah, okay, I get this." Those of you that may not have are probably saying, "Whoa, what am I going to do now?" Well, keep in mind that there are some great helps here for you. We've talked about some of these commands. You can, right in your box here, again, this is just the box that came up. We're going to have to wrap up here pretty quick, folks. You can come in here to reference, and this will, over here, this will give you some ideas on where to go as far as constants and some of the commands we've talked about, so you can use that. Also, one other area is up here on your platform where it says Help. Click on Help, Launch Learning Center, and then down here click on Reference. Under ThinkScript, clicked on Reserved Words. I know I'm going fast, folks. That's because I'm very limited on time. This is on an archived recording. Then right here in Reference, you can type in everything that we've talked about here. You know, we talked about if statements, if, here's an if, reserved words if, and then it'll come up and it'll give you if then else, and it'll explain things here as well. So these are other resources. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and wrap up here. Thanks for joining me here this evening. It has been a pleasure. Just a little bit of a heads up that we do have our Advanced Concept Workshop coming up in Dallas, Texas, February 22nd through the 23rd. Mike Follett and John McNichol, a couple of our very knowledgeable and gifted communicators, will be there. Texas sounds like a nice place to be during the month of February. If you are able to attend, I would encourage you to get there early, as those seats up towards the front, they do go relatively quickly. And also following our session right here, we have Michael Fairborn, Value Investing, Finding Stocks on Sale. So you definitely want to hang around and catch that. Little review of our disclosures here, folks. Again, just keep in mind that any investment decision you make in your self-directed account is solely your responsibility. Everybody, thanks for joining me. Best of success your investing. Hope to see you next week when we'll be bringing up a new study, a new practical study, and I think I'm looking at one right now that it will also be a benefit to those of you that are looking at earnings as well. So bye, everybody. Again, hope you best of success your investing, and we'll catch you later. Bye, everybody. We'll see you. Thanks again.